the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our family and our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again.
Welcome to our monthly AAA podcast, Affinity, Allie, and Annette on the road to good storytelling with your hosts, Allie Spooner and
All right. Well, I'm Allie Spooner. I also write with Affinity Rainbow Publications, and I've got numerous titles out. I jump from genre to genre, from anywhere from romance to paranormal. I've got a lot of different series that are, and some standalone books. I hope you enjoy our podcast and have an opportunity to meet some new authors that are new to you or to learn more about your favorites. We appreciate your support and invite you to visit Affinity Rainbow Publications to check out our books.
And I'm Annette Mori, also with Affinity Rainbow Publications. I'm not going to go into the spiel, the introduction of myself, because you've heard it before. Suffices to say that I really enjoy doing these podcasts and I enjoy writing. I think I'm getting close to 35 books now. So, woo, there we go. And this month we'll be talking about sapphic romance within a reality TV setting. Whew, with our special guest, I'm so excited about this, Nicole Pyland, very prolific writer. And she wrote, I just reread it again because I read it before and I sort of remembered it, but I wanted to sort of brush up a little bit. So I reread it and I really enjoyed it the second time. Her memorable novel, Reality Check.
So, following our podcast, we'll upload to a newly created YouTube channel and hope you consider subscribing so you never miss a future podcast.
And I have the honor and pleasure of introducing Nicole. Nicole Pyland is a best-selling author of lesbian romance novels, including No After You, All the Love Songs, and the series like Chicago, San Francisco, Tahoe, Sports, Boston, and more. Since 2017, she's published over 30 novels, not including her What Happened After shorts, and more books are on their way. Nicole grew up in Indiana studying English and film, and then getting an MS in behavioral analysis and moving to California, working by day as a head of training at a startup. She lives with her wife and their opinionated cat, who spends his evenings helping her write stories by occupying half the chair. I have to hear more about this opinionated cat later. I will ask.
You might hear from him directly. He's right outside the door.
Good.
So
I have several. I have more than
Yeah.
one opinionated cat.
then you know what I'm talking about.
I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. We have fur babies that frequently make appearances during our podcast.
Aw.
It's like,
I fully support that. In my work meetings, I used to anybody that had the dog or the cat in their lap, I was just this the whole time.
I know.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So, without further ado, you're on, Nicole. Take us away.
I actually have the book this time. I normally just read from my phone, but my wife brought me the paperback. I didn't even realize we had it in the house because sometimes I don't know. Okay, so can I tell a little bit about what section, like where this is?
Set it
Okay,
up.
this is,
Absolutely.
this is in sort of the middle of the book. Basically, the setup is there's these two characters, obviously amongst other characters, who are on a reality competition show. So I chose a short section of kind of one of the challenges to give people an idea of what they would be
Good.
reading about. So hopefully, so I'll get started here. I'm not going to do voices if anybody's expecting grandiose voices, not from me. But as I said on the beach, today's challenge and trial are both about the mind. Callie and Celeste, you will each be locked in your own cage. The cage has 5 locks. 10 keys are scattered in the sand beneath your feet and tied to parts of the cage. Each key also has a clue tied to it. Read the clues. If you can find and solve the right one fast enough, you can use it to unlock all 5 of your locks at once. The first one out of their cage wins, Ryan explained. Well, this was it. She was in her first trial and would likely be eliminated. She had made some money, though, so that would have to be enough. Callie climbed inside the person-sized cage and waited for Ryan to say go. When he did, she instantly reached to untie the first key she could get her hands on. "Read the clue first, Callie," Dayton shouted. "What?" "Read the clue. If it's not worth it, don't waste time untying it." "Oh, right," Callie said, through her nerves. "The answer is red," she said to herself, knowing the riddle because she'd heard it before. "Red. I need a red key. There are at least 3 of those. I can see them from here. And there are some in the sand, so it's not that clue," Dayton explained. "Callie, find another one. Don't look at the red keys." Callie slid her feet around in the sand as her hands worked above them. She felt something at her left foot, reached down, and pulled it up to read the small card tied to the key. "When you have to unlock something, but a code isn't what you need this thing that's on a ring, which has been cut but doesn't bleed," Callie read out loud. "It's a key. The clue is a key, but they're all fucking keys," she said a little louder than she'd intended. "How many of them are on rings?" Dayton asked from her spot behind the railing. "Fuck you, Dayton," Celeste flipped her off. Callie looked in Dayton's direction as the woman explained. "The key rings. How many of the keys have rings?" "Oh," Callie said, and glanced at the 6 she could see easily. "None of them." "Dig," Dayton replied, pointing at the sand. Callie knelt in the sand and started digging for the 4 other keys. Celeste had already unlocked 2 locks just by finding the right keys. There was a risk in Callie's strategy to find the one key that could unlock them all, but there was no turning back now. She pulled another key from the sand, looked at it, saw no ring, and did the same with more until the 9th key. That one had a ring on it. Callie found the closest lock and slid the key in just as Celeste had opened her 3rd lock. That lock released. Then Callie heard the sound of the other locks doing the same thing. So she yanked the one on the door to the cage off and rushed out of the cage. "Callie is our winner," Ryan yelled. A moment later, Dayton and the rest of the cast ran onto the trial stage. Dayton reached for Callie and hugged her. Callie let her, and she probably let her hold on a little too long, but she couldn't help it. It felt good hugging Dayton. "Thank you," she said to Dayton, for saving her again. "You would have figured it out on your own. I just didn't want to risk it," Dayton replied, winking at her. "Why me?" she asked, knowing the camera was right there in their faces. Celeste is kind of a bitch." "I heard that," Celeste said, from her spot inside the cage until the locks released on their own. "Vince, I could have used a little help," she told the guy she'd hooked up with. "Sorry," he shrugged. Callie felt very lucky in that moment. She might have still managed to pull it off, but Dayton's help had made it all but a guarantee, and that meant the world to her. The end. That's the end of, I'm just kidding. That's not the end of the book.
Very good. I'm serious when I said I really enjoyed it. It's a very fun novel. I don't know about
Thank you.
you, but I never really got into reality TV except for, did you ever watch the original? You might be too young for this, but the original Survivors. Did you watch those, Allie?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Survivor series, the very first one, that was a long time ago. I think that was the first reality TV series that was kind of big, that made reality TV what it is.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I recently saw this other show, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that I got into any kind of reality TV after that first Survivor, which I thought was kind of interesting. Are you reality TV fans or no?
I think I first got exposed to reality TV before it was called reality TV, but it wasn't. It was Real World and Road Rules on MTV. Were sort of like the first Real World was sort of like the first reality TV show. And then later you started to see these competition shows.
Yeah.
So you would see like Real World Road Rules Challenge, and they would, do these types of battles together. And I do remember I watched the first season of Survivor. That was brutal. I remember them being brutal to each other.
I know.
And that was pretty much it on Survivor for me. But I grew up kind of with the Real World and Road Rules challenges. And once they started to get, the cameras are there and they're just faking stuff for the cameras, I stopped. I don't really watch too much anymore. But.
Yeah. And you had some, you had some of that in your book where you talked about, them making it, zeroing in on particular scenes that would really play to the audience. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
It's all about the ratings. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, Annette, are you ready to read from your latest?
I am. And just a little background on this. So, like I said, that I hadn't really watched much of reality TV for years and years and years. And then this advertisement came on. I don't really watch a whole lot of TV, but I caught this advertisement for this show, this reality show, this new reality show called The Ultimatum, which was the queer version. And I thought, now this is a fascinating little reality TV show. And I thought, well, this would make an interesting book. So if anybody's watched The Ultimatum, you'll get a sense for the theme. It's not challenges, it's not physical things. It's about all these couples who get together, and one of them wants to get married and the other doesn't. And so they have to figure out, are they, after the end of the show, are they going to get married? Are they going to find another wife, on the show? So they swap them out. So you have to live with somebody else for 3 weeks as a married couple. Or are you going to go away and say, okay, if she's not going to marry me and I didn't fall in love with somebody else, I'm going to be single again. So that's the premise of The Ultimatum. So that's what I based my book on, because I just thought it was so fun and funny. So I'm going not in the beginning, but not too far ahead. This is sort of the beginning. This is when the second main character point of view comes into play. Holy shit, Jamie thought. She suspected they would select attractive couples to participate in the first ever queer version of the Love Demand. But as she looked around the room, the only words that came to mind were lesbian royalty. Jamie could almost see the drool dripping from the corner of her partner's mouth. She was definitely enjoying this a lot more than Jamie. Sabina had been the one to suggest they try this after they'd hit an impasse in their discussions on marriage. Jamie had reluctantly agreed because that was what she always had done. Whatever Sabina wanted, Sabina got. It was Jamie's fault for not asserting herself more. It made little sense because she never let the men in her school push her around, even if they were technically her bosses. But at home, she felt like a doormat. That was what love did to a person. And if nothing else, Jamie was crazy in love with Sabina. An attractive blonde looked as uncomfortable as Jamie, but the gorgeous woman sitting next to her, who wasn't even trying to hide her admiration for Sabina, seemed custom made for this forced reality show. Jamie could hardly blame the woman. In a sea of beautiful people, Sabina definitely rose to the top. Sabina was in her prime. The small modeling agency she worked for kept her busy with catalog jobs. Still, her ultimate goal was to make it into high fashion as a runway model, and eventually into movies or television. She'd said she wasn't picky as long as she snatched a lead role. Sometimes Jamie had the crazy idea that Sabina was merely acting her way through their relationship. Jamie knew how Sabina hated campaign modeling, embarrassed to be seen in clothing sold by the big box stores like Walmart or Target. To her, they were low class. There was no way Jamie could get through this first night without a drink. Leaning in to whisper in Sabina's ear, she asked, "Do you want a drink?" Sabina offered her $1 million smile. "Yeah, something light and refreshing would be great." "A mojito?" "Perfect. You're too good to me," Sabina purred. "I'm so great. Why do you refuse to consider marriage?" Jamie thought, with not a small amount of bitterness. She had broached the topic on multiple occasions, but 8 months earlier, she had finally gathered the nerve to have a serious discussion, and Sabina had been blunt about her desire to focus on her career. It still stung 8 months later. Jamie pushed away from the small cocktail table and headed to the bar. After giving the bartender her order, she looked around at the twinkling fairy lights and muted lighting on the deck. The crew probably set everything up, so all the participants looked good on camera. Jamie hadn't wanted to wear what she considered a makeup overkill, but after signing the contract, she had no choice in the matter. Of course, she knew foundation existed. Sabina often expertly applied a base layer of makeup, but Jamie had never once slathered that on her face. On special occasions, she'd put on mascara. However, that was as far as she ever took it, preferring a more natural appearance. Caked on was the only way to describe what they'd done to her.